All right, national panel, let's make a declaration right here, right now, on tribute videos for players who leave teams under bad circumstances and have only been gone 6 weeks. Jimmy Butler, of course, headed back to Miami tonight. This could go so right or so wrong. And the women's Sweet 16 lost almost all of its sweetness late last night at the Galen Center. Juju, we're sending good juju your way. Let's go around the horn. We start with the tough-to-hear news of the day. USC star and National Player of the Year favorite Juju Watkins out for the season after tearing the ACL in her right knee during the Trojans' second-round win against Mississippi State. This happened 5 minutes into the game. Watkins driving to the basket on a fast break between two defenders when her knee buckled. She had to be carried back to the locker room and did not return to the game. SC hung 96 on the Bulldogs to move on to the Sweet 16, but left with a massive void. Bill Plaschke, you were there last night. What was your reaction to Juju's injury, and how does this news impact USC's tournament run?
Well, Courtney, it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen on a basketball court. 1 minute she's flying down the court, the next minute she's curled up in the ball, screaming, crying. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible to see, and it was so sad. She's the face of college basketball. She's on billboards. She's in commercials. She's on T-shirts and jerseys everywhere. With her trademark bun and the way she plays and flies around the court like a great player. She's the second leading scorer in the country. She has the second most points in the last 2 years, first years of any Division I player. She's the heart and soul of the team. She's everything. To lose her it's number one, so sorry for her. What an interruption and going to be a great career. But also it's bad for USC. This guts USC. This finishes USC. I hate to say it, but they're a top 4 team net rating with her. They're not in the top 30 net rating without her. They can't beat UConn in the Sweet 16. This is the end of it for USC.
J.A., and that would obviously be the Elite Eight that they would be playing. They've got Kansas State on Friday. But J.A., point stands here. This is an incredibly significant blow to the Lady Trojans. How do they overcome a loss like this? This is a team that's built around Juju Watkins. Where do they look?
Well, it's not just a blow for USC. It's for all of women's college basketball, right? It seemed as if everything was aligning. You were going to have all 5 members of the first team All-American team playing in the Sweet 16. You were going to have all that star power, all these players we've been following all season, and then you lose probably the biggest star of all, men's or women's, right up there with Cooper Flagg. But just like USC, it was more than just Juju Watkins. For example, Kiki Iriafen with 36 points last night to lead them. There's more than Juju in women's college basketball, right? You still have Paige Beckers. You still have Hannah Hidalgo, Dawn Staley in South Carolina, Flau'jae Johnson. So there's still a lot of star power, but the brightest star is gone, and that hurts.
Harry Lyles, I guess the silver lining here would have to be the fact that USC has held its opponents to 23% shooting on the season. Can they continue that in the Sweet 16?
I think they can. Their defense has been one of their calling cards outside of obviously all the explosive performances that Juju Watkins has. J.A. mentioned Kiki Iriafen's 36 points. That was a season high for her. She is going to have to continue to look like the projected top 5 pick that she is the rest of the way if they're going to continue their tournament run. I think the bigger takeaway for me from this is just a lot of the emotion that you saw from this last night had more to do with just more than the season that she's having, which, by the way, over her first 2 seasons, she was on pace to break Kelsey Mitchell's record for most points over the first 2 years of a Division I career. She's going to be 53 short of that now. But the other piece of this is she brought this USC program back to a prominence and a dominance that we haven't seen out of them in decades. And for her to be from Southern California, and it almost seems like she was born into this greatness and was destined to lead this USC program back. It's just unfortunate to see the setback, but hopefully, obviously, we're all hoping that she recovers well. And honestly, it could just end up making for an even better story next season as she continues to pursue her career.
Kevin Clark.
Yeah, what makes this so heartbreaking from a basketball perspective is that the NCAA tournament, men's and women's, is one of the best star makers in sports, maybe in American culture. And Juju is about to go from a household name to sports fans to a household name to everyone. And now that gets deferred for at least another year. USC, as Plaschke said, is done, unfortunately, as a team this tournament. Juju, when she's on the floor, USC is the 4th best net rating in the entire country. When she's off the floor, they're not even top 30. They've only played 168 minutes total this season without her. They don't even know what their identity is without her. They're not going to make a run. This is heartbreaking from a basketball perspective. I hate it, and I hope this time next year we're talking about a comeback story, as Harry said.
All right, there's our first horn. Bill Plaschke, last word.
She transformed USC. She transformed Los Angeles into a women's basketball town. She transformed the nation into, post Caitlin Clark, the most celebrated player. It's just sad to see. I still can't believe it. We were in shock the whole game. The rest of the game seemed meaningless. It was like we were frozen watching it because it wasn't real because she wasn't there.
A gut punch to anybody watching that game at the Galen Center on TV, and certainly her teammates having to pick up the pieces and continue to move on as USC moves on to the Sweet 16, albeit without its star, Juju Watkins. All right, moving on. A night of mixed emotions in the tournament as we close the book on the first 2 rounds. Alabama and Maryland providing a 2-overtime thriller as the Terps came back from down 17 in the 3rd to move on. Paige Bueckers dropping 34 in the presumptive final game of her career for UConn. LSU's Big 3 turning a 1-point halftime lead into a 30-point blowout over Florida State. So all the number 1, 2, and 3 seeds get through to the Sweet 16, along with 1, 4, and 3, 5. So this is where things get interesting. Harry Lyles, who is your favorite in the women's tournament, with the stage set for the 3rd round.
You know, Courtney, last week on this program, I said that I felt UConn perhaps should have been the number 1 overall seed, and I feel even more validated in that after watching them play so far in this tournament. Obviously, we know what Paige Bueckers can do. She's one of the best players in all of college basketball, but AZ Fudd has been healthy. We have seen great basketball out of her, and with Sarah Strong, they have a legitimate Big 3. Not only that when their best is better than everybody else's best, but also they can win in multiple ways, as we already seen in this tournament. In fact, during their game against South Dakota State, they scored or assisted on 78 of their 91 points. So as long as 2 of those 3 are clicking, and perhaps even just 1, I think this UConn team can take down just about anybody that they face.
Paige Bueckers getting the treatment around the court yesterday felt very reminiscent of all that she's brought to that program. And of course, AZ Fudd, today we find out that she's going to be coming back to UConn next season as well. Kevin Clark, to you, who has stood out the most from the women's first 2 rounds?
Yeah, I hate agreeing with Harry Lyles, but I have to right now. It is UConn. Paige Bueckers became the first player in UConn history to have 3 games of over 30 points with 0 turnovers.
Right?
When you're the first anything in UConn women's basketball history, you're doing something incredibly right. To me, first 2 games in the tournament, their point differential is over 100, 8th team in history to do that.